Exactly, because we have economies of scale together.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 6th annual, I'm just kidding. Okay. Please grab your seats. We are a few minutes behind schedule.
Got a couple on the video.
We have Director Vonish, Director Sanat, and Director Jules. So far on Teams, for you folks on Teams, I have a very difficult time actually seeing you. So if I miss your hand up, I apologize, but the screen is in behind me. And I'm not that quick. Sorry. Sorry, Director Sanat, you have your hand up already?
Yeah, I received a message from Director Kerr that he'd like to join by Teams. I tried to forward him my link, so I'm not sure if that worked. If Ms. Watson could be so kind as to reach out to Mr. Director Kerr.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start off, hopefully with the correct pronunciation of this. Okay, we have we have confirmation of quorum. We're going to call the meeting to order. And I will acknowledge that we are located on the traditional territory, of the Likwata people. And hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Adoption of the agenda. Thank you. Second, first Wally, second for Director Colburn. Petition and delegations. I'm sorry. On the adoption of agenda, number 4 under staff reports is being amended, is being removed. So it's amended. It's being removed. Yeah. Staff report number 4. Yes, sir. Sorry. Call question. Let's call question. Sorry, question. On approval of agenda, amended agenda.
So moved.
Second. Colburn, discussion. All in favor? They're gone. Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Michelle, thank you. Just making sure I get the name right. We have Michela, the Executive Director of the Campbell River Community Foundation, to make a presentation regarding Vital Signs 2022-2023 grant program. So please, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little bit of background information, and then I'll get into the grants and some new initiatives that we are doing, like Vital Signs, to increase our service to the community. We are one of more than 200 community foundations in the CFC, which is Community Foundations of Canada network. Being a member of CFC means that we are part of a national movement which is advancing local solutions to trending issues in communities. It also means that we get to tap into expert legal and financial advice from advisors that specialize in philanthropy that we don't have the operations capacity to retain at the local level at this time. The mission of the foundation is to enrich life in Campbell River by developing a permanent endowment fund. What started as a $5,000 seed funding initiative from City Council in 1992 has now turned into $3.2 million, which we invest with the Vancouver Foundation. Thank you to our donors who have allowed that to grow that fast. We assess community needs by performing an ultimate environmental scanning tool, which is called Vital Signs. And we use this report to help to inform the decision-making process on our granting applications, which is how we respond to the community needs. We provide options for donors to give back to the community, and there is an option for every type of donor of every size and demographic in our community. We are a catalyst of charitable activities, and we respond quickly because we have the endowment fund. We have a financial resource that we can count on annually to be available and to return to us, and it grows with every donation. We have 3 grant opportunities running this spring, and to spread the word, I want to share them with all of you, and I hope that you can share them with potential applicants that may fall in each of your regions. Community grants are made available with interest earned from the endowment fund, like I said. This year, there's around $70,000 available, and there's no restriction to the ask size. Projects are to be completed this year, and applications are open by the month of April. To date, the Community Foundation has dispersed just shy of $1 million to the community, and we have some other granting opportunities that we are able to now offer in our partnership with CFC. This number is rapidly increasing because of that partnership. This is an image of a bus that we just funded with the Beacon Club. It was a $20,000 grant in 2022. On slide 5. These are some examples of some community grants that we've given in the past. Just so you can see, there's updated grants on our website as well for every year. There's, for example, the interactive robotic seal that went to the Hospital Foundation for individuals with dementia to use as a therapeutic animal on their lap. And there's also the Backpack Buddies program, which sends non-perishable foods home with children every Friday so that they don't go hungry over the weekend. These are just some examples of the grants that we're able to provide. On the next slide, you'll see the United Nations Sustainable Goals for Development. I just wanted to quickly show you this visual because this is what you actually will see everywhere you look now that you are familiar with it, if you weren't already. These are the goals that organizations, when applying for grants through the Community Foundation, have to indicate which of the goals their project is going to contribute to. That being said, back to Vital Signs. We have now put out 3 publications, and thank you for your support on this initiative in your last fiscal. These publications are getting increasingly more interesting in our community as we collect more and more data and publish them every 2 years. Vital Signs starts with census data that we get from our partners, CFC. It is then supplemented at the local level with data from local community organizations or subject matter experts, city staff. These are all through interviews. And then we do a community survey.
We'll stop the clock. Time just went by so quick, didn't it?
Thank you. So the community survey is for community members that fall in School District 72. So notable points in our 2022 report that was published in October of 2022 include our biggest community needs revolving around diversity of housing opportunities for community members of all demographics, the rising seniors population and the lack of infrastructure that is in our community that is needed to adequately support our seniors, and the rising number of community members across the lifespan that are accessing mental health supports. Notable highlights in our community, I'll add, is that community members choose to live in Campbell River because they want to be here. The natural landscape is attractive to them, and they aren't just here because they have to go to some job every day. They are here because they want to be here. There is also a notable strength in our arts and culture sector. We use the Vital Signs report internally to help inform decision-making on our granting process. We hope that you can use it to help engage in conversations with your colleagues and community members about changing trends, how to address them. It's a tool for business owners, both small and large, to inform their philanthropy plan, but also their strategic planning for the trajectory of their business. This is a tool that can be used by nonprofits when they are applying for grants to quote stats. It's also a tool that parents can use to talk with their kids and to have conversations that are free of stigma and full of fact. Neighborhood Small Grants, on the next slide, is an initiative that is new to us as well. These are grants of up to $500, and I've heard them described as the Gateway Grant, where once you apply for one, you're hooked on grants, and then you will maybe be working for an organization in your community, familiar with grants, not scared of applications, and able to follow through on your project that you want to pursue. On the next slide, you'll see information about, the Neighborhood Small Grants is open also this spring for the month of March. Next is the Community Services Recovery Fund, and this is a partnership from Community Foundations of Canada, from the Canadian Red Cross and United Way, and it's a $400 million investment from the Government of Canada that we get to disperse right here on the ground in our own community. This grant is really exciting for us because typically we only disperse grants to charities that are registered, but for this grant, we actually get to also serve nonprofit organizations and Indigenous governing bodies. Also, we only traditionally serve the School District 72 boundary, but for this, we recognize that we serve many communities north of us and that we are the gateway to the North Island. So we applied to be able to disperse this grant to everyone in also School District 84 and 85. On the next slide, this is another initiative that is quite new to the Community Foundation, and this is a new way that we are putting into motion the stats that we're pulling from Vital Signs. Vital Conversations, many of you were present at our Vital Conversation, and I trust that you found this event to be inspiring and meaningful, and that you saw others in the room that are critical players in changing the state of housing security in our community. This event that we put on was very intentionally curated with an invite-only list of attendees in the housing sector, along with people who have a say in changing the trajectory of housing. This was an opportunity we saw as necessary to mobilize the data in the Vital Signs report. We are not specialists in housing at the foundation, but we do have data and we do have relationships in the community that we can bring together to stimulate change. We also were very intentional about the title. This was not a Vital Conversation on affordable housing. This was a Vital Conversation on housing security, because housing security affects people of all demographics and walks of life. Next slide. And to follow up on a request that I made for support back in October. This event was definitely more expensive than we had anticipated. However, it was necessary, and we feel it did achieve our goals that we set out with as targets. We really appreciate the presence of our city councilors, our regional district directors, and all the representation from our outlying communities both in and outside of our regional district, including our Indigenous nations. We have been approved to present our workshop also at the Association for Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, and have been in contact with other communities on the island about how they have contacted us, to ask how they can put on an event of the magnitude that we put on here. So to be completely transparent, I know there were some questions about the ask that was for this event. And here is a slide showing our expenses, where we got our support from. I really want to finish by saying thank you so much for your support, both by being there in person and by helping fund this Vital Conversation at whatever level you feel is most appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Directors, do you have any questions? Anybody? No? Oh, there we go. Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You're saying that you're doing more outreach to other communities. Like I represent Tassus, of course, and I'm just curious how that works. Do people in our community have to apply through you, or what's the mechanism there?
Yeah, for the Community Services Recovery Fund, there's an application portal on our website. It was on that slide as well. It's communityservicesrecoveryfund.ca. And that is in that portal, any nonprofit organization, registered charity, or Indigenous governing body can go into that portal and apply through there. And in there, you'll indicate your location, and then that application will automatically be directed to the Campbell River Community Foundation.
Okay. Do you currently support our Good Food Box program? I'm not sure. In Tassus.
There was a grant. This is a pop quiz. There was a grant that came out to Surgeon Narrows about a food box, and that was, I think, in 2021. And we also support Greenways, which I think is involved in the Good Food Box as well.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Any other directors? Go ahead.
Michelle, thank you for your presentation. You referenced School District 84, which is the school district in my area, Gold River, and I was intrigued by the program that you were referencing that said that we could apply for money, and so kids could take home food for the weekend if there were food shortages or challenges there. Could you tell me, is School District 84, have they applied for that grant, or are they eligible?
Thank you for your question. Right now, at this time, for our community grants, we're open to the School District 72, but we are looking at ways that we can expand for all of our grants that we offer to the North Island. And right now, that's why I'm really excited about the Community Services Recovery Fund, because this is going to be our first taste of sort of like a pilot in offering out grants to the North Island as well. And ultimately, in the future for the Community Foundation, as the executive director, my vision is that we are a foundation for our surrounding communities all the way on the North Island. I think it's really important that we provide support to all of the communities that are north of us. Like I said, everyone comes into Campbell River to access our services, and I think it's really important that we strengthen the services at each level in each community.
To simplify it for me, could we make an application?
Yes, so District 84 and 85 can apply through the Community Services Recovery Fund, which I see what I was missing, is the Systems and Processes Grant. And so that grant is going to be for any of those organizations that I mentioned that are looking for strategic planning or hardware, software, anything that's going to enhance their ability to be resilient and provide services to their clientele, and then also on the Community Services Recovery Fund.ca website, there is a webinar on there all about the type of projects that can fall into the Community Foundation. So for the Good Food Backpack Buddy program, specifically, that one was through the unrestricted community grants. That one's only available for School District 72 at this time.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. Motion to receive?
So moved.
Director Lott and Director Mawhinney for a second. I apologize. And then Doctor. Director Lott, do you want to second that? Excellent. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Okay. So adoption of minutes, that the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on the regional board on January 11th, 2022 be adopted. Director Wally and Director Mawhinney. Second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Business arising from minutes. I assume none. Resolution. We're good? Yep, okay. Thank you. Just double checking. Public considerations. There is none. Notice of motion. None. Chair's report is just a quick verbal. I had the opportunity to go to my first TLA, which was, for me, educational because I'm not that familiar with logging. Sorry, Truck Loggers Association Conference that was held in Vancouver last week. It was a lot of information. We were fortunate we had some ministers speak, and we had the new premier there as well, and it's educational. And I wanted to thank publicly Brad McKay from WFP for introducing me to many folks and taking me under his wing at that time and trying very desperately to educate me on logging. But it was, I thought it was a good conference. A little gloom and doom right now, but hopefully things will turn around. Thank you. Motion to receive?
So moved, Colburn.
Second, Vinesh.
Where's that coming from? Vinesh, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Okay. Committee chair reports. The Electoral Area Service Committee. Thank you. Second, Moini. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Number 2, Strathcona Gardens Commissions, that the draft report from the inauguration meeting on the Strathcona Gardens Commission held on January 11, 2022 be received. Director Lott? Second?
Chapman, second.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're just really close, but you're just a little slow there. You would, not in my eyes. Director Rice has got the second on that discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Okay, staff reports. Development variance permit application, DV 5D 22 Lamb. CAO, should I speak on that? Motion to receive?
Receipt.
Second? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. And that the development variance permit, DV 5D 22 Lamb, as presented in staff report dated January 3rd, 2023, be approved. And, sorry? So moved by Director Wally, second by Director Colburn. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the, sorry? Was that in the motion? Don't have to do that again? There we go. Moved. Number 2, development variance permit, DV 6022 Fraser. Director Wally and Director Moini. Sorry, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. And that the development variance permit, DV 6D22 Fraser, as presented by staff, reported date January 3rd, 2022, be approved. Director Moini, second Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Number 3, development variance permit for DV 7D22 here. Director Wally, Director Rice on second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the development variance permit DV 7D 22 here be presented at staff report date January 23rd, 2022, be approved.
Move to receipt.
Director Rice, Director Wally, second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And the ESA development permit, no, we passed on that, just making sure you're paying attention, thank you. And that would make, what was that word you used last time you made this?
Redundant.
Not, you didn't say redundant.
Superfluous.
Superfluous, yes, thank you. Indubitably? Beacon Park Court expansion proposal, that the report from the CAO be received. Director Lott, Director Moini, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried, and that the electoral area C, Parks Budget, reimbursed Quadra Island Recreation Society for 1/3 of the total cost of the Blanken Park Tennis Court expansion to the maximum of $4,400 following the receipt and the final of the project report, pardon me.
So moved.
Who was that? You did that? So, okay. Director Moini and then Director Lott as second. Discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry, did you have something to discuss?
I just wanted to say thank you to the amazing volunteers that are going to build the pickleball and tennis ball courts.
There you go. All in favor? Any opposed? No? Carried. Number 6, Director Compensation for Public Hearings. Director Wally, Director Colburn, and discussion, please. No discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the regional district transition from per meeting rate, yearly compensation rate for the public hearing, attendance by directors. Director Wally, Director Rice. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Derelict boats on Cortez Island. The report be received.
Receipt, Vinesh.
Vinesh and Director Davis second. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the report be prepared for referral to the Electoral Area Service Committee on how other communities have best handled the social environmental challenges associated with derelict boats. Director Davis, and second? Director Rice. Discussion?
Yeah, I would like to make a slight amendment to the recommendation, just to include what I'm looking for is also best practice on growing number of liveaboards. So I think Edith has put the amendment on the board that a report be prepared and referred to the Electoral Area Services Committee on how other communities have best handled the social and environmental challenges associated with growing numbers of liveaboard and derelict boats.
Do we have a second? Director Wally? Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Pedestrian access on Ocean Grove School, that the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Rice, Director Wally is a second. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure be contacted regarding pedestrian access over the public right-of-way that is located at 380 Crawford Road and Ocean Grove School. Do I have a motion, please? Director Rice, Director Davis, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Number 9, Fire Protection Study, Gold River Highway. Report to be received from the CAO.
Move receipt.
Director Rice, Director Wally, second. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that further report be prepared to investigate the concept of providing fire protection services to the Upper Campbell Lake and Strathcona Lodge area. Do you have a motion, please? Director Dahl? Sorry, I saw your hand go. Oh, you're just taking off your glasses. I apologize. Sorry, who's first? Director Rice. Second is Director Lott. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Appointment of Strathcona Gardens Commissioner. Report received by the CAO.
Move receipt.
Director Rice. Director Mowini. All in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry?
No, carry on, sorry, carry on, Chair.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
You may. Corporate Officer.
The report, sorry, Mr. Chairman. The report does contain a couple of alternatives for the board if they wish to consider either of them or none of them. They're there for the board's information if they wish.
Didn't the commission made a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this has to do with the appointment or non-appointment of Cal Grunerud,
Cal,
who's
sorry,
been with the commission for a number of years now, and whether whether he should be reappointed by the board today or at some other point, or not at all, or whether the board wishes to go back out to the public to look for candidates for that position. So they're listed as alternatives in the report should the board wish to consider them.
Director Dahl.
I'll move option A.
Second by Director Wally. Further discussion? Director Mo Winnie.
Thank you. I noticed that the recommendation is that he would be reappointed as a member of the Strathcona Gardens Commission for a 2-year term ending on January 31st, 2025. And the corporate policy states that to enhance stability and continuity, the term of office for the member appointed would, wherever feasible, commence on April 1st and terminate 2 years later. So I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to appoint Cal Grunerud to a term which ends on April 1st, 2025. And if so, I would offer that as a friendly amendment.
Mr. Yates.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know I can speak to that without a seconder to the amendment. It is an amended motion, correct?
I was just wondering if it was reasonable to offer that, or if there was a reason that it wasn't being recommended to go to April.
Mr. Chairman, the policy that Director Mawini is referring to is in fact a board policy. However, it is a policy, not a bylaw, so, so the board obviously is guided by it. Whether it wishes to stick with that policy in the present circumstance would be up to the board entirely. So would leave it to the board to decide what is most appropriate. Certainly the policy was put in place by the board in recognition that it should be transparent when it comes to making appointments to these bodies. However, it is not for me to judge whether that's appropriate to follow in every single case. I think that's really for the board to consider and decide.
Okay, board. What's your thoughts? Director Dahl?
My thoughts are that the board hasn't been following that directive before. This term expired for him on December 31st, 2022. So clearly it hasn't been used. I made the motion. If we don't like it, you can defeat it.
Director Colburn?
I'm just wondering how we can rectify that so that we are following our policies in the future. If it could be, if that will take care of itself with this appointment.
CAO.
If I can, Mr. Chair, I think the reason we haven't followed it is just because we've lost track of when his appointments were. Then it's come to light and we realized it now. We're a few weeks late, so it's 2 years from today. So I really don't think it's critical whether it's January or April. It's a 2-year term. It staggers our board, which is the important part, so.
Okay, so we have option A from Director Dahl. Do we have a second?
Second.
Director Rice, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Strathcona Gardens Commission membership. Report to be received from the CAO. Director Wally?
Second.
Director Rice? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the current membership provisions of the Strathcona Gardens Commission bylaw remain unchanged. Do I have a motion, please? Motion. Director Dahl, Director Rice, second. Discussion. Director Lott.
Through Chair, I was wondering at this point, could we consider revising the bylaw that controls this so that any director would be able to sit on that commission as opposed to the way it's structured right now?
CAO.
Mr. Chair, I don't think there's anything that prohibits the board, should they wish to have a staff report brought back looking at amendments and membership, certainly. There's nothing that's going to prohibit that.
Through the chair to the administrator, is it necessary to have a report? Is there something in there that is legal or that would prohibit us from moving forward with that right now?
I'm not certain it's so much legal, but I'm confident it would be political, and there could be some items in there that, you know, for example, I'm fairly certain Campbell River would like highlighted. It's a membership of, made up of the participants and then one external appointment. And I would venture a guess that Campbell River would like to know the pros and cons, as well as Area D.
That's where the staff report would come in.
I can understand that. I defer to the CAO's logic. Thank you.
Did you want to make a motion on the staff report?
Perhaps I'll let the language, because I don't really have one in my mind right now.
We have a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair, I believe, and that came from the commission that the membership stand as it is. So we can either have that motion and/or that motion cannot be supported. It could be amended. It's the will of the board, whatever the board wants or what you would like to forward as a motion, Director Lott. But I believe we have a motion, a recommendation from the commission at this point.
Yeah, right now we're just on discussion. Sorry, we have Director Kerr.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you're muted.
No, I don't believe so.
Oh,
You
well,
can hear me?
yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just my comments on,
I'm sorry, we lost you again, Director Kerr.
okay. Sorry about that. Am I there?
Yeah, you're just very muffled.
Sorry. Obviously the mic is not working properly, so
There you
I'll
go.
pass. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My comment on this is Strathcona Gardens is basically pay to play, and the membership, other than one community member, is strictly at this point the people that the requisitions are that run the facility.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Director Lott, do you have anything to add? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. That was discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Okay, see if I can make sure I can answer this properly. Sorry? QCO. Okay. Capacity study, update, grant opportunity. A report from the CAO be received.
So moved.
Director Mulwany.
Second.
Sorry,
Second,
Director
Dinesh.
Davis.
And Mr. Chair, I believe Wolfgang will speak to this.
Good afternoon, through the chair and the CAO to the board. Our report is to consider a submission of an application to Infrastructure and Planning Grant Program to complete the Kwatioski Cove Sewer capacity study. So back in 2019, we engaged the engineering firm Kurz and Associates, and they did a preliminary review of the capacity of the Q Cove Sewer plant. Using a flow meter that was installed in the same year, and the findings are showing that the flows are greater or higher than what we had in the previous flow meter. So we would like to go back and complete this study using more data that we have from 2019 up until today. This study will assess the ability of the sanitary sewer system, collection, treatment, and discharge to service the development envisioned by the official community plan. So the program is offering up to $10,000. The total cost to complete the project or pay the professional fees is $23,000. We will be submitting this. The deadline is, we already reached the deadline. We just need board resolution to complete our application. We're hoping that if we get $10,000, it will help us contribute with the funds that are required. The other $13,000 have been included in the 2023 financial plan. Our recommendation to the board is that an application to the infrastructure planning grant for $10,000 be submitted to assist the funding to update the Kwatioski Cove Sewer Local Service Area collection, treatment, and discharge for the system capacity study. Thank you.
Okay, so that was on receipt. So all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, receipt is carried. And that the application for the infrastructure and planning grant program of $10,000 be submitted to assist with the funding and the update of the Qualhusky Cove, thank you. Sewer service located area collection, treatment, and discharge system capacity study. Do I have Director Mowini,
So moved.
Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. 13, grant opportunity, emergency support service. That the report from the CAO be received. Second? All in favor? Sorry, Director Rice was second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Opposed? Seeing none, let's talk. Hello, Mr. Koopman.
Through the chair, so emergency support services is the heart of disaster response. These are our regional volunteers that train and exercise and deploy to make sure that anyone that is displaced from their home due to a disaster can have at least their basic needs met. And I'm asking for your blessing to apply for just under $250,000 to support this program with training, exercising, and supplies.
Thank you. That's on receipt. So all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the application be submitted for the 2023 Emergency Support Grant Program for enhancing emergency response on behalf of the local government and First Nations entitled, identified in the January 20th, 2023 report from the CAO.
And that the regional district commit to overall management of the grant if it's successful.
Thank you for finishing that for me. Oh, is that? No, that's all good.
I was moving it, not just
You were
finishing
moving
for
it?
you.
Is that what you're doing? Okay. And Gerald will second that. Thank you. Discussion. Director Mowini.
Thank you. I noticed that there is purchase of 3 sea cans for part of this project, and I'm curious where they will be stored. I noticed that one of them will be stored at the Baptist Church, but I was curious if you had already chosen location for the other 2.
One for Ahadasat First Nation to complement the one at their, through the chair to Director Mowini. One at Ahadasat First Nation to complement the one that's already there for their tsunami muster site. One helicoptered into Reed Island. Another one for Campbell River location still to be determined. One for Gold River.
Thank you. Thank you through the chair to Sean. And if I may, I have one more question.
By all means.
Thank you. I was reading that on page 10 and 11 of the application, it talks about host community capacity, a hosting with humility workshop, and it frequently mentions the Comox Valley. I was curious if this application is considering working the Campbell River and Comox Valley. Are they going to be offering hosting services for each other in the event of an emergency? And that's why it mentioned the Comox Valley.
Through the chair to Director Mowini, that's a great catch. That's just laziness on my part. I am copying a concept that the Comox Valley has already done. So I will copy and paste Strathcona Regional District to replace that before I submit it on Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you, Mr. Kubin. Okay, and number 14, Crown Land application refers to regional district. The report from the CAO be received, please. Director Colburn. Director Mowini. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carry. And Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board may recall this is a matter that was deferred from the last meeting to allow directors opportunity to review the applications and offer additional comments at this time should they so wish.
Any comments, directors? Director Vonish.
I just wanted to speak in support of the Argosy Sea Farms application. This is a Cluhus First Nation business and fits in line with the OCP. It creates business. It's a green business, and I fully support their application.
Thank you. Anyone else? Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. This was something that I asked a little bit about last meeting, and I'm curious if there is a way for all directors to receive Crown referrals when they come into the SRD, so that we can respond in a more timely manner.
CAO.
Again, in the report, if you get the agenda on Friday, it's not an authority the board can delegate. I think the discussion at the last meeting was when you read the agenda, if you have comments, then you bring them to this board, and for this, if you had something additional, the board would accept them. We would include them in the recommendation and move it forward.
Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. 15, Race Point Area Fire Protection Service, electoral area A. Thank you. Moved Wally. Sure, second Rice. Director Wally, go ahead.
Just a little confusion on my part. Are we talking about Duncan Bay here?
Your microphone, sorry. People online can't hear you.
Just to clarify, are we talking about Duncan Bay Fire Service here?
Director Yates? Director Yates, sorry. Mr. Yates, want to be a director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is strictly the Race Point Road area. The Duncan Bay Road is a process that is currently ongoing, and a report will be coming back to the board in February, we believe. This was split off from the initial study that the board authorized because of the distinctions between the two areas. They're quite a bit different in terms of benefits and costs, and so the board agreed this should be dealt with as a separate item, and so it is here before you today as a separate item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. B is that the bylaw to establish fire protection service at Race Point Road area, electoral area A, be prepared for further consideration by the board. By Director Wally, Director Colburn. Is second discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And 16, draft 2023-2027 financial plan, regional services. And that the report from the CAO be received.
I'll move receipt so they can present.
Director Colburn, Director Lott, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just while Mike's setting up for a short presentation here, I want to give the board a little background on how, for the new folks here, how we've developed this presentation. We've spent years in consultation with both the board. We've had presentations from community groups in Campbell River and Area D. We've gone and done budget workshops on all the electoral areas, getting feedback from folks on the budget and their comments, because the Local Government Act allows folks to make comment on the budget at an appropriate time, and then typically or often you can have a local government that gives them 1,000 pages of GL codes and it means nothing to them. So we've spent quite a few years trying to create a budget that is inclusive of all the information you need. It has been in the appendices that you've got, and we give a couple of different versions of it. One, I want to say is a bit of a entertaining visual high level that identifies everything we're doing. Also then attached to is the much less interesting, all the hundreds and hundreds of lines of GL codes in there. So another thing we've heard back, and it's been fairly successful through the years that we continue to do unless the board gives us other direction, is we present budgets to the board and represent them as taxpayers see them. You know, one thing you'll realize when people get their tax bills, and regional districts are worse than even municipalities, is there's a bunch of layers. And so there's hospital, there's 911, there's solid waste, there's everything else. And then it summarizes itself at the end of the bottom line, and it says X $1,000. And, you know, we found through a lot of comments and workshops with people is they don't really care. They pay their taxes and they want to know the differences. So what we've done is taken the increases that the regional district is laying on them and taken the average tax bill on the average home in each municipality and represented to that. So, you know, in Campbell River, I believe the average tax bill is about $4,800. Take our increase, and you can say to the area director, councillors for Campbell River, that they can say, this is the increase from the regional district, or if you're Gold River or wherever, and things that people can relate to. And I think we've received a lot of positive feedback that it keeps it simple, and they can say, okay, the regional district increases that, and give you numbers that when folks are questioning, you know, what you can say, because they're really, you know, there's layers within this budget. Let's, you know, 911, library, that we don't really have a lot of influence on. They're numbers that were just given to us. And so how does that represent the individual homeowner when they get their taxes? So that's how we've presented it. We've also taken a lot of input from the board on things that affect them, that are keen interest. People are always really excited, anxiety about assessments. And so we try and talk about how assessments, you know, affect people. Really, people think their assessments go up, their taxes are going to go up. That's not actually the case. And how it's distributed throughout the regional district, because you know, we have this pot of money in the regional district, and all the municipalities in the EAs, they don't move together in the assessment, so it juggles itself. And sometimes you'll find that shift beneficial in your community, and sometimes you won't. But it's just how it moves through there, and it's quite interesting, I think so anyways, you know, how the different areas are changing and how that's affecting their taxation. I think at the end of the day, I think you're going to be really pleased. We're very cognizant that the regional district is a layer to the municipal taxes. We're cognizant of the EAs, of, you know, what impact this has here. And so we put this together in what we think is, you know, a good way for you to see all the services, what we do, and the impact to them, and kind of explain some of the impacts they have. One thing that's come up, this is just going to be a short editorial at the end. It's happened in the last 2 or 3 years. So the province has done this assessment shift away from industry, forestry, to residential. Now, we, boots on the ground, kind of wear that, in that the province makes that tax shift that we have no control over, and it's pushing it more onto residential. And I think in here, not to contaminate Mike's presentation, but, you know, taking Sayward, for example, as the worst example of a tax shift this year, whereas their tax shift is 700% more than our tax increase. Now, the numbers are relatively low, but just want you to see that if you do nothing, and I don't think for Campbell River, for example, the biggest contributor, I don't think it had a big impact this year, but in previous years in Area D and even B and C, significant shifts made real impacts. Even if we came forward with a zero increase, I think in Area D we were $80 a home last year, just as they shifted away. So, you know, we're proud of ourselves, and we bring a budget forward to Area D, and we said, look, it's zero increases, but it was $80 a home. So it's kind of interesting, you know, a reason, something to advocate when we're talking about whether you're at UBCM or FCM or AVICC, about how the province is shifting those, you know, quietly away, and Mike has a nice slide on that, and how it's affecting folks, and you don't do anything. You're having no impact on it. And I think, for example, in Campbell River, it's about 5% over the last 5 years. It's just shifted from that group to the residents, and you wear that, and yet you have no impact on that other than to advocate your provincial politicians. So, having said that, I'll pass it to Mike, and I think you'll be quite pleased with what we have.
Just one moment, please. Director Wally first.
If I could just make one tiny little comment, and I probably say this every year, but would it be possible in the next iteration of this just to throw in the little number of the mill rate? And the reason I like that is because when I report that out to the constituents and explain how it works, each individual owner with his own appraisal value can figure out exactly what his increase is. When it's just based on the average, that they're either above that or below that, and some of them aren't quite smart enough to figure it out. I know the numbers are there that you can figure it out, but if staff would just put the mill rate down as well, it would help.
Sure, just if I can comment on that, Mr. Chair. The one challenge with regional districts and how we try and represent, I think Area D is the easiest one because they have the most service. Not everyone gets all the services, so the one mill rate doesn't work. So again, to lean on Area D, I represent it as the average home in Area D that's getting all the services. Knowing not every single home is getting every service, but I'd literally have to give you, 14 different scenarios. So when you go to your constituents, you can say, this is the average. Some are higher, obviously, and some are lower. So that's the challenge with that one.
Thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, we can go to the first slide. So today, the goal of this meeting is more or less just to introduce the financial plan. So we'll have deliberations coming up in February, but we just try and get that out to handle any of the initial requests and then see if we can make any changes to make those deliberation sessions more efficient. So today is just going to be a high-level overview of the changes to address. Sorry, we can go back there one sec.
Sorry, if I apologize already if I jump in. So we've compartmentalized this into 3 sections of the budget, and then we'll consolidate them together based on the comments that we have. So this will be our regional services, everything that everyone pays into regional services, and the impacts that this will have. We'll do the electoral areas tomorrow. We'll take any comments from that, and then we'll do Strathcona Gardens on the 31st, and we'll bring those together. So the numbers you see here will be one third of the total budget. However, except for the munis, it'll be, well, in some cases 100% for Zabalas, because we have the commission, which is Campbell River and Area D. So this is for the regional services, and so for example, Campbell River, the only thing we'll layer onto this will be Strathcona Gardens. And the reason I've done that is to give you an idea of what we're looking at for a tax increase for Campbell River, giving you some latitude or liberty, same with Area D, when we look at Strathcona Gardens, to assist in your decision-making ability. That will layer onto this. Having said that, again, what I feel, they're fantastic numbers. So.
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to make. So when we get to the EA charts, for example, there'll be quite shy of a lot of services, but you'll see the full chart tomorrow. And then, yeah, you'll have plenty of time to incorporate feedback as we go towards the March 31st deadline. So you go next slide. So before we begin, we'll hand these slides out to everybody, but we just wanted to give some brief overview of some of the strategic priority highlights. Of course, with the new board, we'll be heading into strategic priorities in the coming months, but and a lot of this is actually contained in the budget documents. But yeah, we've obtained some fairly large grants in the last year that we're still currently working on. We're dealing with the Community Health Network and the Just Like Home. We just got the new community health coordinator was just hired, so things are moving in that regard. You can go to the next one. And then we have some broadband delivery. So we had a big change up in 2022 with the contract. The project's still going, but it's more with City West. So we had to do some reserve transfers for that. We have the Earthquaker, the warning system, which is very exciting. And some environment, and then as you'll hear throughout, we've already heard of all mostly Sean's activity with the EOC programs. So we're getting a lot of grant monies coming into the community. Go next. So as Dave alluded to, one of the big factors for a regional district is the assessment tax shift, and that comes in 2 forms. First, which everybody knows, is the transition or the change of assessment values between regions every year. So that will push taxes to any area or send them away. And then the second is the shift between property class. And for the last 3 years, we've seen primarily a shift into residential from your managed forest and your businesses and the other classes. The next. So this is the average we see. So in a service like the general administration, where everybody participates, these will be the overall assessment tax bases. So as you can see, Sayward is the #1 increase this year. So taxes will be shifting from places like Tassus and Zabalas and Area A and B over to places, Gold River, Sayward, and Area C.
So if I can, I'll just jump in to kind of, this is what everyone gets a little bit panicky over when they have an increase in their assessment. And so what Mike's done is take a line through the average change, which is 12.2%. In a nutshell, that means if you're right on that line, it's not going to make any change to your taxes 1 year. If you're a little bit below the line, your taxes are going to go down. And if you're a little bit above, your taxes are going to shift a little bit higher. So, you know, again, there's, for a number of reasons, there's winners and losers in this shift of assessments. It's, you know, all over the place, it seems, year to year. Fairly neutral for Campbell River and this year, and then you can see the differences. So I guess you kind of want to be below the line. That's good news. And if you're slightly above, well, the price of your house went up, but you're going to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm not overly comfortable with that 18%. Could you call somebody and change that, please?
No.
Yeah, that would be the leadership, yeah.
Can I just make a quick question here? Why does it change so radically? Like, maybe you've already gone over this, but I just need a better explanation, because I know our assessments have gone up a lot in Tassus, so that's why I'm curious.
So you have, let's say you have 100% of assessments in the regional district, and you've got, you know, all these different areas. They're not going to go up or down equivalently. So you got to take that 100% and redistribute it through there. So just so happens, again, for argument's sake, Campbell River's assessments were fairly neutral, and you know, Gold River, Sayward's, their assessments went up higher on average than, you know, a lot of the other areas. Why that is, I don't know. I mean, we've seen some dramatic increases, like Area D, for example, and the city of Campbell River are not always the same. We've seen substantial differences, and you'd argue it's like, well, you know, they should be the same thing, right? But they're not. So it's just the inequity of the change in that assessment, and that's numbers that we just get from BC Assessment. And some areas, the value of the property goes up higher and disproportionately than other areas. So we just redistribute that amongst our 100% in here. And you know, again, next year that they'll be all over the place again. They'll be inconsistent, and you might be above the line next year and below the line another year.
So when is that snapshot taken? Is that sort of last summer?
I think BC Assessment does their assessments in the summer, and then you get them on January 1st. But I think they do it. They're probably about 6 months behind when they're delivered. Mike?
Yes,
right?
Yeah, these represent your July numbers, and if you were to ask that a question to BC Assessment, they say they first see the increases in Vancouver, then the next year, those are gonna see increases in Nanaimo and Victoria, and then it just slowly trickles out to smaller and smaller towns. So, like I say, I think Campbell River was pretty aggressive last year or the year before, and then it just goes out to the area, so.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to suggest, if this is an issue that the board would like to flog some more, then we could certainly invite someone from the Assessment Authority to make a presentation to this board as to how they do their assessments and why there is the time gap between assessed value coming out and the notices, et cetera, because they're supposed to be capturing the market values of properties throughout their jurisdiction annually. And that's what this chart is attempting to show. Why they've come to these conclusions is beyond us. It would be the Assessment Authority would perhaps be able to explain that in more detail if that's the board's wish.
Does the board wish to have them come out and do a presentation? Director Davis?
I'd support that.
CAO?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think, sorry to interrupt, but I'm happy with that as direction to staff, as, you know, just to keep ourselves moving here. I don't think we need a resolution yet.
The one thing I'll note is they are presenting in Courtney this week, so if anyone wanted to turn into that, that discussion, might be able to catch it there as well, but yeah, we can look into that. You can go next slide. So this will help better explain the residential shift in the tax class. And again, all this is in your document. We have one for every area, but Sayward is the biggest. So as you can see, back in 2019, 71.1% of all taxes were paid by residential versus in 2023, you're up to 78%. And then the 74.3 of last year to 78.3 of this year is produces quite a noticeable effect, and that's just, if you add all those amounts up in anyone, they'll add to 100%, but as you can see, the second biggest class in Sayward is the light industrial, and then that's gone from, close to 20% down closer to 15% this year. And then, like I say, in your books, each area has the individual class that you can see, and that will be a combination of both increases and your non-market change. Next slide. So these are the average house prices, and as you see literature coming out from all the municipalities, you're gonna see different numbers. I just take the true mathematical average of the assessment class, so it's total assessment divided by the number of occurrences, but if you're looking at any realtor documents, for example, they exclude raw land and condos and other stuff in their numbers, so this comes right from BC Assessment. So next slide. And this chart I ripped off from the province. I should have credited on them, but the numbers you see before you, we bake in a whole bunch of stuff like contracted increases, any periodic expenses such that occur every couple of years, all your insurance increases, your HIDO increases, any other minor adjustments. So we see all that, bake all that in. Major changes to service levels, that's typically introduced you guys through business cases or in-camera discussion and staff reports that come out through the year. And down in the budget commentary, we try and comment on anything atypical out of the range, but that's kind of what you see, or any carry forwards that we happen to make. So you'll see that should be noted in the specific budget documents.
So for, as per, the board's direction, we are, on that slide there, looking at the year-over-year CPI impact. If anyone's curious, the number ended up being at 6.9%.
Okay, so this is the first chart, and then just to show you how it's constructed, the main, I guess the colorful chart is the actual change, but the gray chart on the side is the actual impact of assessment shifts. So how you'd read that, if you look at the bottom bar for the general administration, it's going up $2.61 per household. Just 7 cents of that is due to the assessment shift, and it's like Dave said, because your Campbell River is so close to the average, you won't see too much of an impact for the shift this year. So overall, excluding the guardians, we're going to about $8 a home, and just 11 cents of that is the shift. And to address Director Wally's question from earlier, that rate per 100K would be the amount. So they could take their assessed value of the house divided by 100,000 and times it by the rate, and then they should come up with a applicable amount they would pay. And we have all the tax rates per service broken down on the page. We have a little note there on the bottom, which we'll get to in the last chart, but it just shows the overall impact to the taxpayer. So we contact the ministry and we get their numbers for the total fees and taxes any taxpayer would pay in a year. We take the $7.94 per home and we divide that by the average fees and taxes they pay, and so you come out to the 0.16% of the taxpayer impact, not including the gardens.
So again, how we try and represent this, and I think that's what's important for you, and when people want to know the impact of the taxes they're having on the change on it. So this is Campbell River, and we have every local area and municipality on here. So we take that average Campbell River bill, which we for the average home, which I believe is $4,800 and change. We add what we're layering on in 2023, which is that $7.94, and give you a sound bite. So if somebody says, what impact is the regional district having on the city of Campbell River? You say, well, in 2023, it's 0.16% addition to your taxes, which, I think is a pretty amazing number.
And one other point of interest I'll bring out is when we are looking at assessment tax shift, if you look at the bottom two bars, the municipality administration has the different groupings. That's just the municipalities. And you can see there that Campbell River was actually under the average when you just look at the 5 municipalities. So that's why the the assessment impact is actually negative in that service, but positive for all the rest. But again, as we go through these slides, it'll kind of, that gray chart will become more clear. Next slide. So this is Village of Gold River, and as you can see, here's where you start seeing the notice of the impact. So a reminder, we're at 12.2 was the average, so Gold River's total tax base went up 16%, so that shifted taxes into the region. And then the household amount was 20%, so taxes are going from businesses and industrial over to the homeowner. So when we measure here, for example, the general administration is going up, the bottom bar is going up $2.09. Over half of that is just due to the assessment shift. So even if we weren't change anything, you'd still see an increase to the overall assessment. So the total for Gold River is the $5.81 per home. If you hit the next slide. So the Village of Sayward is slightly different just because it includes a shared garbage service with Area A, and then the tipping fees were relatively light, and so hence the decrease in that regard. But again, as you can see out of the, if you look at the bottom bar, $3.18 increase, a large percentage of that was just the shift, and that's mostly just going into the residential from the other classes. And then overall, it's the 0.26% of the impact to the taxpayer, which will be covered again on the last slide. So hit the next one. This is TASIS again, and then we're only 7.8% of a total tax base shift. So now you can see the assessment starting to push, push the taxes down, and you'll even start realizing tax increases for like services like 911. And then we have Zeballos, which will be next. And this one you can see they had a big, the opposites say they were the lowest on the end, so they have quite a big tax decrease per home. And one other thing I'll note too is I have a bunch of supplemental charts in the package, but for Zeballos and KCFN, Stats Canada didn't do the extra sampling, so I can produce the charts for those if you're wondering why they're missing. So you can click next slide. And then there's KCFN. So this, again, the assessment data comes from BC Assessment. I believe they only have one house in the region, and then it changes quite a bit. So a couple years ago, they valued it, then they knocked it down last year, so it's coming up a little bit, but it didn't have much of an effect for the assessment shift. And then you can hit the next one. And again, for the electoral areas, we'll cover this more in depth for tomorrow. But a good example here, this is one area where Sayward and Cayucit have all the same shared services, so you're going to get that same per 100,000 assessment rate. But as soon as you expand that to include all areas, and if we were to try and produce one mill rate, you'd have a significant difference for any home. So that would be the only unfortunate thing with the regional district, is it's kind of tricky to add them up. And that's kind of true even with when we're talking about the average household. It's the most pessimistic number because it assumes every single home is in every service, which is not all the case. But what's more, I guess, apparent is the change from one year to the next. So you can hit the next slide, and so this will be Area B. And again, tomorrow you're going to see the more of the numbers, but they were under average, so you see assessment shifting away. Next slide. And then electoral area C had the biggest increase of all the electoral areas. So when you go through your presentation tomorrow, you're going to see more of a significant impact for there. And I guess might as well go Area D would be the last one. So yeah, 623 for home, and again their shift is coming down because they're below the average this year. Yeah, and you can go next slide. So this will be the final slide. So this is the taxpayer impact. It summarizes all these little notes we had on the charts above. But we go to like say, the Minister of Finance, and we get the average. It's called taxpayer fees, so it includes all your taxpayers, your service fees, sewer and water, and they add it all up. So for Camp River, for example, that total was $48.70. We just take our increase that we're talking about, divide it by that, and you get that 0.16. So any of the increase we're talking about is going to increase or decrease that little bar at the top. So if you make any changes through deliberations or anything, that's going to be the ultimate impact of what the taxpayers what the taxpayers will see. And of course, that data is not published for the incorporated areas, so we don't have it included on this chart. Yeah, I think that's it for the presentation, but if you guys have any questions on any of the individual services, we can get into that, or like I say, send us off a email or anything if we could do any type of improvements to the how it's presented in your books, or any adjustments that we can make.
So again, the plan here, just quickly, is if there's no comments, no additions, subtractions from this, we take this and we incorporate it as 1/3 of the budget. We'll see what happens at electoral areas tomorrow, then at the Gardens Commission, and then we'll put those three pieces together. But for argument's sake, if there was no change to this, and I'll just use Campbell River as an example, it would be $7.94. We'll lock that in. We'll see what happens from the Gardens decisions, and we'll add that to the $7.94, and that will be the number. But give you some perspective, whatever that is, they're pretty tiny.
Director Wally.
Yeah, just have a question. The meaning of that word converted, when you talk about converted assessments, can you explain to me what that converted means?
Yeah, so every place will have a assessed value, and then the province assigns rates that you would convert. So, for example, if you have a home, it's a 10% conversion, and then if you have a business, it's 24%. So, for every dollar of assessed value, they want to weight the taxes to make the businesses pay more, and make managed forests pay more. So everyone has the individual ones. Cities have some flexibility where they could toggle that around, but being a regional district, we're stuck with it. So.
Sorry, directors, any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Susan has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go
Thank-
ahead, Director.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, so when I looked at the absolute numbers on the average for Kempen, for example, it looks like it's, was it $7.40 or some number like that, but it works out to about 7.5% change overall on the average house. Is that kind of the fair way of sort of putting it in our head for the change from previous year?
Yeah, not including the garden, so you would take the
Right.
$794 for a home, and then divide that by the 105.86, which is the
Right.
number at the top, yeah, and you'd see that.
Okay, because that's often the communication to the public is what's the percentage change over the year?
Yeah, and so, with the region, we primarily go by the cost per home, just because when you're dealing with a lower amount, especially when you get into Zabalis and everything else, $1 increase for Zabalis is quite a big percentage, whereas you put that same number over to Campbell River. So, again, that's just when if you look at cost per home and mill rates, yeah.
I did see that. There was quite a difference in the smaller communities. I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can, Director Sinnott, it's tricky, right? Because there's layering on there, and there's things that come externally there. And so, as you know, there's a number of different ways you can represent this. And, community folks, they wanted to know, what the change is and how they could easily see that represented from each organization. So that's kind of how the board has chosen to represent it, as that, okay, look at that big tax bill and everyone's contributing to it and what that is. But yeah, there's a number of ways it can be represented. And I guess I'm a little bit defensive in the regional district is that, at times there's services that we have to layer on there that we have no control or authority over. And so I don't mean to pick on the library, but the library decided on 8.1%. So we could do a fantastic job here and bring it down to, let's just say, an overall tax rate of 2%. And then the library piles on there. And so, you kind of end up with a number that you haven't created yourself. And I think personally, I think that's a little bit unfair. And then combined with the input that we get from the community about, how they want to see it. So we say, okay, just forget who's piling on, whose money goes where, what's that overall bill, and then what does your organization compound that at, and what's the rate? So that's how we've represented it, but you're right, you could come up with 16 different ways to build a percentage on that. And then everyone's getting different services too, right? So you're trying to find a singular way to represent that, because you got so many different folks participating in different levels of servicing in regional districts. So I say, there might be 30 ways of representing those numbers.
Sorry, I would just add to that real quick. That's kind of why we got away from using the per $100,000 rate, because if we were to measure that and put it out there, you just look like general admin, or the municipality admin. 5 years ago, it was $4.06 per 100,000, and, now we've, cut it all the way down to just over $3, but, that cut is a tax increase per home, but it's just that the value of the homes have increased so much faster than the underlying taxes that, a per mill rate is, although it'd serve us well to advertise that, it's just not really applicable for any homeowner.
Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. The question I have is a bit of a technical one, so forgive me for it, but when we're talking about shifting taxation, from what I understand, they're just playing with the assessments. They haven't changed the class multiples at all. And the class multiples go to create converted assessments. So they're not playing with the class multiples. They're just instructing the assessment authority to weigh more on value residential more, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to address that, I mean, the bottom line, residential taxes are going up so much is because the average homeowner is willing to pay more this year than last year for the average house, whereas an average business owner is not willing to make that same investment. So, just as people are more and more willing to, increase their mortgage servicing and then pushing value into it, you're going to see the taxes follow. So it's not really anybody at BC Assessment. We've had the same classification for years. It's just that, like I say, housing goes crazy, so off it goes.
Just to clarify, assessment authority tries to have properties valued at market value, and they take market value based on sales of similar properties in the area. So you're right, if the residential sales have gone up dramatically and the prices have gone up, then it's going to reflect in everyone's residential assessed values in the area. So they try to base it on sales. So businesses start selling, residential properties are.
And in the small communities like mine, it's any sale at all in the village is affected, not a neighbor or in the neighborhood. Okay, one more question we have from Director Vonish.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question about the, like the budgets where we don't have control over, like the library. If the library asks us, or gives us a 10% increase in budget, do we legally have to do that, or can we say, sorry, we're going to give you 6.5?
I think in a nutshell, if I can, Mr. Chair, I think in a nutshell, the answer is you just got to pay it. Now, I don't mean that literally you don't have any control, because we have representation on that. So, but it's a cast of thousands. I think it's a 38-member board. So that 38-member board determines it's 8.1. And, maybe this is just a personal chip on my shoulder, but, I have my crew of folks here and we do our work. I just don't like that external layering on there, that if I work towards 2%, another organization is 8.1%, I got to put that on our shoulders, and I just don't like that. So again, to Susan's point, is that there's 25 ways you can represent that. I want to represent it, or I try to, and the board is supporting it, representing it the way this organization is doing its work. Because there's things, as we know, and you'll find out, that you have little control over, right? As you meander your way through these regional hospitals and solid waste and all that kind of stuff. So who's ever on the library board, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but their number was 8.1%, so fight hard.
Thank you. So that was on receipt. So all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much. 17, KB, that the board, sorry, Director Colburn? Did I miss something? No? We're all good? Okay, just checking. Votes are receipt? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And B is that the board approves the grants and aid to be paid from the electoral area B grant aid budget as follows. Do I have a motion, please? Second? Second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Sorry, that was Wally and Rice. Okay, bylaws, bylaw 477, electoral area D, rezoning. Motion to receive report, please, from CAO.
Report.
Director Rice, Director Wally. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, is carried. And B is that bylaw 477, being a bylaw to amend the zoning regulations, application to electoral area D, be now introduced and read for the first time. Do I have a motion, please? Director Mawhinney, Director Rice, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. And that bylaw 477 be given second reading. Do I have a motion, please? Director Rice, Director Mawhinney. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the public hearing for bylaw 477 be waived. Motion, Director Rice. Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Move receipt of correspondence 1 through 4.
Second, Director Wally. Discussion? Director Mawhinney.
There appears to be an ask in number 4. So maybe we should discuss that separately.
I'll amend that for 1 through 3 then.
Second, Director Wally. You're now a doctor. Okay, so discussion? All in favor? Opposed? All right, we discuss and pull number 4. Thank you, Director Wally, Director Colburn, and discussion. Director Mawhinney.
I noticed that this is a letter that is asking for a representative from the Strathcona Regional District on a climate leadership committee, and they mentioned that I wasn't sure if there had been a representative from the SRD on this committee in the past or not, because they mentioned that there may have been. So I was just curious if there was, who it was, and if we wanted to send somebody or not.
Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yes, the board has in the past, I believe, appointed Director Davis to be part of this committee, and it may not have been exactly the same committee. I noticed this is not AVICC, it's just VICC, so I'm not sure what the change is there, but there was an appointment made by the board in 2021, I believe. I'm not sure about last year, and certainly not this year at this point.
Director Davis.
Yeah, I guess I could speak to that to some point. I haven't been involved with it directly myself for a couple of years, but one of our counselors, Councillor Fowler, has been sitting on the community on this committee on my behalf, and because I remember at one time we were actually funding travel for, and then that was withdrawn a couple of years ago. So I don't think we provide any financial support to it right now, but that's the current status. So.
Director Mawhinney, anything to add?
Does anybody here want to be a part of that committee, or do we want to discuss that more?
We're still under receipt, so we'll just go through the receipt part first, and then we'll move on to that. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, and now we will. Oh, and I gotta, pardon me?
Does anyone have a motion or no?
Do you have a motion?
Nomination?
A nomination motion?
this is awkward because I know my counselor would like to remain on that committee, but I think they still require mayors to be on the committee, even though I have delegated. So I'm not really sure how to respond to this.
Okay, is there any,
Nominate Director Davis, and then he can sublet his position.
go ahead, see.
You could nominate a delegate and then an alternate. And so I suppose if Director Davis found out that he already had a director going, the alternate, with the understanding that they may or likely be going to, I don't know how many meetings they're going to have, but we have alternates to all our appointments, so.
Can follow.
No. An alternate on this board, though,
Yeah.
so you could nominate Director Davis and Director Rice as the alternate.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is that Director Davis be the main representative and Director Rice be the alternate.
That wasn't.
Are you sure?
I don't make motions.
I saw your hand move. Okay. I apologize. Do we have another alternate on the Director Lott? Did you just move your hand? Oh, I saw your hand go up. I'm sorry. That wasn't it? Did you have a comment, Director Dahl?
Well, I'm just wondering if Director Davis has delegated his position on that board already once. Is he just going to delegate that position again? If he is, why are we wasting our time?
And to Director Dahl's, we don't have to appoint anyone either. It's just a request, right? If the board feels it's represented, like, I don't know, maybe Director Davis goes or his alternate go, they can clearly report back to me. I don't know, but there's no requirement for us to appoint somebody. If the board feels comfortable at status quo, we don't have to do anything.
So we could just remove for Director Davis. You have a comment?
Can I nominate somebody else on this board then to?
Yeah, I didn't see
Director
anybody's hands go
Rice,
up.
if you're
but-
interested. Sorry. Mooney, sorry, I got the wrong name here.
So you want to nominate Director Mulwiney to be a representative?
From the regional district?
Correct.
Would you be willing to accept?
If the board wishes, we can defer and then kind of consult with what the other munis are doing and bring something back to the board if they wish. Yeah.
Director Wally?
Yeah, my
Sorry,
opinion
Director
is,
Davis, thank you.
we don't have overwhelming support of
No.
nominees here. Why don't we just skip this thing? I think it's basically a waste of time anyway, my opinion.
Director Mulwiney?
Well, I'm curious a little bit more about the ongoing, like, time requirements and the way of meeting. So I'm curious, I'd like the idea of deferring it till we
Why
get
don't
more
we bring this
information.
back? Okay, so you can have a conversation with the staff and find out the details on that. Okay, thank you. So we're going to move number 4 out of here. Out of the correspondence member. Okay. And
Process-wise, do we have to vote on a deferral?
I did miss a question.
sorry, do we have to vote on a deferral? It was on a correspondence. Or we're tabling.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding was, pardon me, the board was looking for a staff report that would clarify some matters to do with this.
Yeah, for that, we need a motion, right?
Unless the CAO advises he's got it, yes.
I think let's end this. I have enough
Okay,
info.
good.
I think I can come up with something.
We are on open pen.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you for
Open pen
clarifying the
transition.
language, because
I'm
that
sorry?
was, thank you for clarifying the language, because that's all I was stuck on when we were talking about
Yeah,
deferral, so.
No problem. Thank you. Director Sinat will speak to the matter of open pen transition planning for salmon farming. Director?
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Can everyone hear me fine? Because on Zoom, I just want to make sure the mic is good.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great. So the federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans had an invitation that came out, I think, maybe in December, and I indicated I was interested in attending what they call the Local Government Transition Plan Engagement, I think they'd had one previous to my being elected, but they had a further one in January on the 16th. That was Wednesday. It was held between 9 o'clock and noon. I did attend, and part of it fizzled out for me because of the way I was attending. But anyway, it is, they had two sort of agenda items, which was aquaculture innovation and a trust and transparency section. They were looking for feedback from local government. What I did hear them say, which wasn't quite on the paperwork, was that they basically were looking for two choices in terms of the future of aquaculture on the coast, being a zero impact wild salmon in the ocean in net pens. So some sort of technology that would prevent any feed or any type of flow of water escaping from the pens into the wild, and then land-based technology. And so there was a lot of discussion about innovation, but they also said that there was no current technology that would permit either choice. And my recollection was that they said if they can't do one of the two choices that they're proposing, then there'd be no more industry. So I thought, wow, I don't know exactly where we're going except an inevitable conclusion. Now, if anyone hasn't heard the background, and it was quite confusing at the meeting, a number of the participants were saying, why are we doing this? You already decided to close everything. I don't understand. You've already made your decision. Why are we talking about having transitions and sort of accommodations of ongoing aquaculture salmon farms in the ocean? I thought you were closing them all down. And if anyone was aware, last April, the Federal Court of Canada overturned the minister's decision based on procedural fairness grounds. And then it went back to, I believe, Cabinet. And this is now the end result, the DFO consultation process, because they didn't do a consultation process before they made the announcement in 2020 to close down everything. So it's nice that they're doing the consultation. I'm not quite sure that they've already prearranged the two choices. And they're looking for local government impacts and wants. They were specifically asking what do the local government want. And I think they were suggesting that if they did close down the entire industry, what would we need and want? And I did note that in a discussion of the case that reversed the minister's decision from 2020, that the economic loss was calculated at 390 million and over 1,500 jobs. And then there was also further loss of further capital investment by the industry. And the DFO people did acknowledge that aquacultural finfish, the salmon farm, is probably the largest agricultural product of the province. So it's a significant industry. I'm not quite sure where the feds are going with the idea of what they're asking local governments to provide. And if anyone's been paying it last week, the fish farm industry presented an economic impact analysis of a transition plan, or whatever they're calling this, the idea of the impact of their industry. I haven't read that myself. And then yesterday, if anyone was paying attention, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans gave a definitive peer-studied report that concluded that fish farms were not contributing to sea lice infestation on juvenile wild stock. So given that most recently report from the DFO itself, I'm curious where DFO is going to go now. Nevertheless, there's a lot of different points of view that people have. There's confusion about the background, why we are where we are. And as a local government, I think it's imperative that we at least look at the background, try and get educated ourselves. And obviously, if they're looking for input from local government and the impacts and the needs would be depending on the various options they're choosing, that we have a seat at the table and make sure we're clear as to how it's going to impact us, because I'm sure at the City of Kamloops we're quite aware that the top three resource industries, or resource and tourism industries, forestry, aquaculture, and tourism, if we don't have those industries, we really don't have the foundation for a lot of the other reasons to exist as a community. For example, me as a lawyer wouldn't have customers, and on why would we need as many doctors? People couldn't work and support our community. So I think a lot of us have different points of view because we have different regions, but it is certainly going to have an impact if we have a reduction in the aquaculture industry. We also have a number, as I understand, different points of view from our Indigenous members and Indigenous First Nations. Some are highly reliant on the industry for their economic welfare, and others are very concerned about the stability of their wild fish and the transition, the migratory routes. So there's a lot of complex issues that come into play. So I just thought I'd bring that to everyone's attention that this was moving along. I looked at the chart. It looks like they're trying to get all the input done in January into February, and by April, March, come up with some objectives. They're going to do an Indigenous consultation in between period. So I think I mentioned to the other members from Calgary that they might make a resolution following my report, or if I have any questions from the members. I believe our chair also attended. And yeah, I had some concerns about the process and maybe how people didn't quite understand what was going on.
Okay, do you have a motion to present?
I could either present it, or we could have one of the members from Camp River who are there present it. I think we have.
Edith has it up. She'll pull it up here.
Great, thank you. And my understanding is that the regional district had done a prior sort of report, but now that we have new members, it may be worth reconsidering with new information.
Great.
So my proposed motion would be that staff prepare a report for the board that consolidates the information on net pen transition provided to the SRD board prior to October 2022.
Not necessary? Okay. Director Chapman. I'm sorry? You'll second the motion?
Second the motion.
Very well. Discussion, Director Rice?
Can we amend the date, October 22nd, 2022?
Open pen transition provided to the SRD prior to October 2022. What they're looking for,
Oh,
the change is to get all the back information.
all right, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Director Davis?
Yeah, I just want to make some general comments. I know the Village of Tassus has been on record. We passed resolutions opposing open net fish farming in our region because of the ongoing impacts we've been seeing. We're not opposed to the industry. We'd like to see it go to some sort of closed containment. We have 2 hatcheries around Tassus. One's federally run, and the other one's run as a volunteer basis by the village. And we depend heavily on the sport fishing industry. And there is a lot of commercial salmon fishing in our region. I know that that's big in Sabalas. And the research that I've read seems to indicate that they're having huge impacts on the wild salmon because the fish from our hatcheries have to go by these sea pens, and they're dropping feed, which goes down into the ocean, but it also draws the young smolts that are running out to sea into these fish pens because they will feed on that same feed. When they go there, they get infected with sea lice, and most of them don't make it out to the ocean. So we're seeing year-on-year declines in our wild salmon. So again, it's having a negative impact on us economically. So we've been opposed to it since 2010, I think was our first resolution. I'm planning on bringing another resolution forward from my new council, and I'm sure it'll receive full support.
Yeah, I think
So-
one of the things that the director is asking for is, I mean, it's going to be science-driven information that is out there to be brought, because there's going to be new members of this board that aren't familiar with the history of it. So whether they're for or against, we want to put in front of them the accurate information, science-based, and not by any other group. Sorry, Director Colburn?
This is a really delicate proposition for me. You know, we talk about science-based information and having that back, and there are so many studies out there refuting other studies, that this is a real hard one for me to swallow as a whole. So I don't know what kind of, it would be great to see what the Strathcona Regional District has what information that they have gotten to date, absolutely. But like I said, for every study that someone puts forward that says it is, you know, bad for young fish stocks, there's another study that says that it's, that DFO is studying themselves and saying that it's not, so.
Okay, thank you. Director Wally?
Yeah, to me, this is like climate change or COVID vaccinations. You can go on the internet and you get information pro and con, whatever you want, that's what you read. I think the definitive authority on this is the DFO. They're the people that we hire to come up with the final scientific position on it. I think whatever they come up with, that's what we should follow. Because if you're just depending on information, research yourself, you'll come up with whatever you happen to agree with.
Agreed. Okay, so do we want to make a amendment to that motion to add just information from DFO? Is that what you're suggesting, Director Wally?
Well, I wasn't suggesting to make an amendment, but I think that's appropriate. Yes, let's put that additional information from the DFO, their current position on it.
Okay, Director Sinat, are you okay with that motion, with that amendment? Sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm fine with that because there was just a report issued yesterday from DFO. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we're going to have to change the date on the motion. Correct?
Well, I
Because
think
if we're going to
we-
include yesterday,
Well, I think it's to update the information that you had prior to October 22. So it's to take everything that was given and then update it to today where we are now.
Yeah.
Isn't that the intent of the motion, I think?
yeah, they can, I mean, it's not exclusive. They can go beyond the 22nd and they'll bring the reports back. Okay, so all in, Director
It
Colburn?
consolidates the information on net pan transition provided to the board prior. Oh, so prior from October 22nd to this date. Sorry, it just
Correct.
reads
We'll just-
different for me.
Okay, that's not my interpretation. My thought was that this is to consolidate all the information prior to the election, so we can bring it forward. But I believe Director Wally had a friendly in there to add.
DFO
Yeah.
from yesterday.
Okay, so the intention was, because there is also, I'm assuming, some economic impacts, there may be up-to-date economic information, but I'm not sure. It was announced as a matter of information. I haven't looked at the data, I haven't looked at the verification.
Okay,
But if it was $390 million estimated in 2022, it's probably very similar still today, but it would be nice to have that
okay,
information.
well, staff will get that report. Director Dahl, you,
Well, when I read that, it looks like we're looking for the historical information that this board has used up until October 2022 to base previous decisions or opinions on. And now we're talking about only taking certain parts of history and considering
I
them.
see.
Yeah, the intention is, I thought the intention was to take the existing reports and bring them up to date. That was my intention.
Director Rice?
And I would go for that. I think if we're going to look at information, we need to look at it all.
Outside of the friendly of DFO?
That's correct.
Yes, anything that the staff thinks are reliable and relevant.
Okay, so just looking at the resolution then, that staff prepare a report for the board that consolidates the information on net pan transition provided, nets, on net.
And up to
pan
date, and
up to date, sorry?
yeah, so prior to October 2022 and updates them, and updates it for.
Okay, and updates,
for the
and
board.
that would be helpful, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Right, we did that already? Excellent. Sorry, it was a long time ago. Discussion. Director Colburn.
Is the friendly still on there or no?
It is. It's not on screen?
Yeah, it is, and updates.
And updates, same thing. Director Davis.
Yeah, I'm fairly happy with this, but I think we need to include any research. We're just talking about DFO. It's got its own silo too, and I don't necessarily trust that we're going to get all the information we need from that one source.
Yeah, that's any updates. So it's not just DFO. The amendment was changed.
Right.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Early earthquake warning and tsunami warning system. Director Davis will speak to the matter.
Sure. Can we bring up the motion too? Yeah, I addressed this a little bit at the last meeting, and my specific interest is that Tassus Inlet has potential for locally induced tsunamis due to rock instability in a particular mountain, and also another phenomena which is called subsea slumping. We have a large delta that's being built out into the inlet, and at times these deltas can slump. It can be triggered by earthquakes, but not necessarily. And as the Connected Coast fiber optic cable is being installed this year, hopefully, I would like to see a sensor put in the inlet, which would probably be pressure driven, which could set off an alarm that would let us know if there's a tsunami being generated locally. Now, generally they're a product of earthquakes, but not always. Sometimes you can get massive rock falls like what happened in the Nomash in 1998, which was spontaneous. It was generated hydrologically. I could get into that, but the net effect is a big chunk of the mountain fell down. There was no inlet there. It went down the valley, 100 meters up the other side, came back down, went 2 kilometers down the valley. Now, if this unstable mountain in Tassus Inlet was to suddenly let go, and that was generated by snowmelt and heavy rainfall, then we could have a real problem in Tassus. And any offshore sensors wouldn't alert us to that, but if we had sensors installed within the inlet, then we would have some ability to be forewarned of it as it occurs. So that was what was behind my motion, but to have some experts come to us and speak to us regarding tsunami warning systems and the implications, and then the potentials for expanding that system so that it's more effective.
Director Wally.
Yeah, through the chair, Director Davis, what do you figure would be the time frame for a big wave starting there and heading to Tassus?
Probably 5 to 10 minutes.
So what was an alarm going to do for you in 10 minutes?
Well, it would have to be an automated alarm. Like, I've been advocating for this. I've spoken with the federal government regarding this issue specifically, and they've never heard this before, but there is logic behind it. It could be applied to other areas. It could potentially be applied to Zabalas Inlet or Mushlat Inlet, even though Gold River is largely not at risk. But certainly in Tassus, an offshore warning system would probably not be very effective for us. It could be, because it could generate some of these local issues, but we're largely protected from offshore earthquakes. Like when the one in '64 happened, it had a big influence in Zabalos and Port Alberni, but it had no influence in Tassus because we are protected by Nook Island and the small channels that the water has to go through.
Did you want to read your motion, Director Davis?
Sure. That an NRCan, sorry, what does that stand for again?
Natural Resource
Canada
Natural Resources
representative
Canada.
be invited to give a presentation on an early earthquake and tsunami warning system.
Okay, second. Director Mulvaney. Discussion. Director Colburn.
I've done a little bit of research on this myself, actually for these exact reasons. And I think that this is, I think it's valid, especially as there are these earthquake warning systems that are riding kind of on the back of our backbone. So I'm absolutely for this motion. And it's someone else coming to present to us, so it's not our staff trying to.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, the next, I'm sorry to say, it looks like it's termination.
So moved.
Oh, I didn't say what was going to be terminated. Sorry. Director Mulvaney?
Thank you. I was just curious, I wasn't sure if it should fit under new business or not, but we had a presentation from Campbell River Community Foundation. And I think that maybe that presentation originated because of a letter that there was some confusion about the grant funding that they were asking us for, and they had asked us for up to some amount. We sent them 700, and then they said, can we please have the rest of what you approved? And I'm just wondering if this is an appropriate time to discuss that, or when would be?
CAO?
You may want to make a notice of motion if that's appropriate. So we approved the agenda. We're through the agenda. We have no items left. So I think the appropriate time would have been at the presentation that's come and gone. Maybe you want to consider either a notice of motion or a motion for next meeting. I don't think the timeliness of their ask is critical. The event's come and gone, the money's spent. So if it's something you want to consider, or if the chair wants to amend the agenda right now, I suppose he can. Maybe folks want time to think about that. I'm not sure.
I would suggest that we move it to the next meeting, find out exactly what the ask is, have everybody at the table familiar and up to speed. Are you okay with that? Beautiful. Termination. We already had a first and a second on that, did we? Director Colburn, Director Lott, second. Discussion. All in favor. Well, that was quick. Thanks, folks. Have a wonderful week. 2 weeks. Take care. Sorry, Director Dahl, do you have a moment?